Hello, I'm Simulated Irk, and here we are, a special treat for you today. We're currently at the southern end of the Donnybrook map, and what we have coming towards us, well, I was very surprised. I haven't been down this end of the map yet. I was very surprised to find some random overhead wiring supports. I was very surprised to see that. But here's one of my latest acquisitions. It is payware. Great Southern NR Locos NR30, NR31 with an Indian Pacific consist. Now, Great Southern is a train that now runs during the Australian summer by Journeys Beyond, using a set of Garn cars that don't run between Darwin and Adelaide during the summer or the wet season in the Northern Territory. They run an alternative tourist service from Adelaide to Brisbane via Sydney and Melbourne with various on-train experiences, dining experiences, sleeping of course, and also watching the world go by, but they have various off-train experiences in places as well. So it's a luxury train, usually hauled by dedicated NR class locos, NR30 and 31, although this isn't always the case. And when they're not operating on the Great Southern train, these locos can be seen on other trains, usually on freight trains. Sometimes it gets a bit confusing, and they have the Indian Pacific locos on the Great Southern or vice versa. Sometimes it's one orange one and one regular Pacific National NR class. Should turn those junction indicators etc. off. And we'll turn our navigation points off, so we won't see those junction markers anymore. So what we've done to start this episode, I'm not doing any building on this episode. It's just going to be trains. Welcome to Trains on Simulated Irk, part of the I Choose You playlist, and the content is certainly growing for Trains on Simulated Irk as we watch the Great Southern go through the countryside. Now, an interesting thing, the Indian Pacific Park on here, it doesn't have any of the carriage signs that the trains have on the side. Normally, if they're on the Indian Pacific, they'll have the Indian Pacific boards on the sides. The Garn and Great Southern, and basically they're the same carriages. Doesn't matter what the train is. They just switch out the side train signs. So when the Garn cars run as the Garn during the Australian winter or the dry season in the Northern Territory, and then when that service doesn't run over the wet season or the low tourist season in the Northern Territory, they switch out the cars and it becomes the Great Southern signs on the side. We will be featuring at a later stage these carriages with the dedicated red Garn NR class locos, and also the Indian Pacific liveried locos. There's been several different designs, especially of the Indian Pacific liveries. Now, Pacific National, they run the locos. or the train from point A to point B, basically, where Journeys Beyond handle everything on board with the clientele. So I've only been on the Indian Pacific once in 1997. It was run then by Australian National. And that's another train that I can feature here when I find, when they come out, the CLP locos that hold it when I was on it in the Australian National livery, where they painted the locomotive to suit in with the Indian Pacific. And that was probably the start of incorporating the colour scheme of the carriages in with the colours of the loco, but still having the corporate identity of the operator. So we're watching Great Southern head through the landscape. We'll come back to Great Southern shortly. At the other end, got a treat for you as well. At the other end, we'll just wait for train to pass around these curves. So we're going from modern 2025 long distance luxury travel, and we're about to go back to the 1930s. And we are going to, I should say, and I have been saying who the drivers are on the train for my own amusement. So Graham's in charge of the Great Southern today. Now we're about to cross to Damon, who's on a totally different train. Now this will be very unfamiliar to many people, even within New South Wales. This is the Silver City Comet. Now the Silver City Comet ran from the central west of New South Wales, usually running out of parks in western New South Wales, and it ran to Broken Hill, which is known as the Silver City. Some people not as old as me may know Broken Hill more for being the base of the movie Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. So why is this train sitting here? That's a question. It hasn't moved from where I set it up. So I'll just investigate that. So we should navigate to... Now I might... Yeah, so I need to go to the southern exit. Navigate to the south portal exit. Am I focused on the right train? Where are you, Silver City Comet? There you are. You're all the way down there. We got a... Maybe I need to navigate you somewhere else just so you can get moving. Shall we just say... Just for some... Just to get it on the move. We'll see if this makes a difference. Otherwise, we might have to... now, we might just go under manual control for a moment, just to get things on the way, on the show on the road. So the Silver City Comet ran from usually Parks. I think at some stage it also ran from Orange to Broken Hill, as I was saying, the Silver City. Now, this train was introduced in 1937. And it was actually the first air-conditioned passenger train in Australia. Needless to say, it had a hard life running out into the outback areas of far western New South Wales. It used to connect with a train from Sydney, usually at Park, sometimes Orange, I believe. In later years, that was the XPT. But in previous times, it was the loco-hauled version, the Central West Express. May have even connected with the Western Mail in one direction. So we'll crank it up. I believe... why is he waiting? Oh, we'll just run him under manual control for now. So there's the back of the collator. Why are you going over there? Maybe that's where the route was set. Uh-oh. Let's stop the train. I think we're going on the wrong track. We may have to go backwards for a moment, because if you're under manual control, the points would have been set like that because of the last train that went there. So very luxurious for its time, introduced in 1937, fully air conditioned. The train has a double-ended power car, so it can drive from either end. And at its destination, it just changed from one end of the train to the other, so it's not double-ended. The train's not double-ended or basically a multiple unit, something like the XPT is. Now, there's not many of these trains around anymore, and I don't think there's any actively being upgraded. A lot of the carriages were actually sold when the service stopped. If you want to see one of these trains, there's actually a set which is stored in I think it's a sulphide. I better change those sets of points as well, otherwise we aren't. Otherwise, an AI train has control of this lead. Well, this didn't necessarily go to plan, but that's what happens when you're under manual control rather than so what we might have to do is change that junction. Oh, okay, so what we might have to do okay, let's see. On the fly, these are, oh, that's the SSR coal train. So what we'll do, we'll go to the SSR coal train. Who's on that? Oh, that's Donald. All right. He's on manual control for the moment. So what we'll move this train further around the coal loop, because this one's actually stopping us from bringing the Comet back. So that should be fine. If we go back now to the Comet, we should be able now to, because that train should be far enough ahead to change. Those points are set, good. Alright, so we can bring... No, we'll have to go the other way. So this is what happens when everything doesn't run under AI on... So while we're doing this, a bit of fun things which I learnt, and I learnt after doing it. We're currently playing on Trainz 2022, the Premium Edition. So I wanted the features where you can basically save your conscious, have everything under automatic control. And have a lot more control over what your trains actually do. So I read, oh, gold membership, you do that. But what that does, that you actually have to download different versions of Trainz, because the gold, part of the thing about gold is they're using features on gold that haven't come through to premium or any of the lower versions of Trainz. So I'm actually, in effect, running two different versions of Trainz. And one remains current while I've got the subscription, and one doesn't. So we should be behind the signal now. So change the points. So now if we go behind the signal, maybe this was part of the reason why. Okay, that signal's now clear. I will be coming up here to re-signal this section in a few episodes' time. What this may also mean is that old mate Damon can now actually go there, maybe. Go and do what I was asking him to do, maybe. Navigate to. We need to go to the southern portal exit. Yeah, we are at the north portal. Okay, so we'll give that some time to... take effect. The thing that I should also point out is that this train is it's an older model, so it doesn't have a lot of the features that some of the newer models have. So maybe that's why. Oh, now we're going. All right, so now we are underway with the Silver City Comet. So, also to explain, technically the front vehicle that we're watching now, DP101, which was the class leader, it's not a loco, it's a power car. So all of the engine equipment, etc., is in between the two cabs, and then the other cars are trailer cars. There's a buffet car, a couple of sitting cars. So let's go back in time and have a look at the Silver City Comet. This is the original colour scheme of the Silver City Comet. It changed to Tuscan a little bit later on and finished its life in the candy colour scheme. Or I think, if not Tuscan, Indian red. But there's another version of this train that's in the Indian red scheme. So let's sit back and enjoy 1930s luxury. What camera are we on? See if we can go line side. Just make minor adjustments on the fly. There we go. One thing that I do want to look into is where to position trackside cameras at certain spots. Are we on trackside? So what it basically stays in chase mode until it detects a line side camera. So we'll stay in this mode for a while and we'll sit back and we'll watch the Silver City Comet going through the countryside. Wow, that's Great Southern running through already. So we need to have a look at Great Southern before it leaves the map. So, wow, that didn't take long for the Great Southern to get from one end of the map to the other. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pause for a moment. We're going to rearrange it so this train can go back towards the other portal. And I'll be back in a moment. Alright, we are back, and due to the wonders of modern technology, we were able just to easily reverse the direction of the train without having to rebuild it. So here's a nice screenshot opportunity for the Great Southern. I may have to manually drive it through that crossover. So just going to manually drive it through the... Make sure it gets through the crossover. Crossover set. So this would count as an unsignalled move. That's one of the things I might actually take into consideration when I modify this end, just to make it a bit easier. Oh yeah, that's an NR horn. So these locos and this contest comes to us from Hotbox Content. How are we going? Are we going through the crossover? Are we on the correct track yet? So now I should be able to tell old mate Graham to navigate to South Portal exit. Now, is he waiting for the signal because he's got... No, he's going to leave. So we're going to basically watch this train from end to end. We'll see how long it actually takes, because I haven't watched the train go from end to end. It's 9:30 a.m. local time as I'm recording this. So let's see how we go from North Portal to South Portal. There we go. Now, the great thing about Great Southern and how it runs, not that I've had a great record of seeing it so far this operating season, is because it comes through the Hunter Valley. It usually goes north to Brisbane, I think, on Saturday nights, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. It comes into the Hunter Valley on Tuesday mornings, goes as far as Maitland, drops all the clientele off, and they go on their coach tours of, I think at the moment there's a choice of going to the Hunter Valley wineries or going to Port Stephens. Then the train goes to Port Waratah to get cleaned, etc. During the day, and then in the afternoon it heads off south towards Sydney, Melbourne, and then Adelaide. Now, the interesting thing about it is, because it's a tourist train, it does have some spots along the way where they do tours, etc. I think in both directions you actually pass through Sydney and Melbourne in the dead of night, so they just basically use the freight routes to traverse through the cities rather than, the trains aren't servicing Sydney or Melbourne. It's a tourist experience. So you get on and off the train in Adelaide and Brisbane. So let's watch the train in action. So we're basically approaching the southern portal. So it's been about 12 minutes from end to end. And I'm just doing some reading here so I can actually save. So I can actually save my trains so I don't have to rebuild them every time. But I'll do that off camera. So we'll watch for a little bit longer, see what happens when it actually makes it to the exit. Actually, what I might do before it does that, hold right click. Now I have to go in through surveyor mode. Save to consist asset. Grade 7. Create new asset. Save. So if I now go into, I think it was, what was it? Asset palette. If I can find asset palette. Where's that? Where are we? Alright, let's have a look. Great. Oh, there it is. It's in my asset list. So what I can do, in theory, is add another one there. Okay. Now this is going to be cool. Watch this. If I'm doing this correctly. That wasn't such a hot idea. So what we can do, we've just put another consist there. So it's basically the same train for the moment. So it is facing the other direction at the moment. So what we can do, oh no, I didn't want to add another one. We can go ahead, rotate the whole consist. Get out of roaming mode. The roaming camera, Fanicum. So we've got two Great Southern trains here at the moment. What I can do, so the consists are exactly the same. So what I will do now is change the locos. And it's really good when you know the naming convention of what it's actually called. One there. Oh, hang on, that's the gun. Make it into the Indian Pacific. So that's version 3, I think I clicked, of the Indian Pacific. And we'll... Oh, Mark 3. And we'll go Mark 5, which is different. Right, that's attached. So we'll rotate the vehicle and we'll go into edit details. Change that. More importantly, change the engine note. Apparently it does make a difference. And very, very importantly, we must be able to change the... Yeah, change the livery to clean. Cool, that's so much better. And then for the back loco, edit details, lights off, engine, I did say I was going to do this off camera, didn't I? Alright. Edit details. Let's see if I can make it. Get rid of that one. See if we can make that one clean. Livery. Edit details. Change that to clean. That's better. And we'll go to save in consist asset. Indian Pacific. And now that is saved. And I didn't have to, because the consists are basically the same, I didn't have to, so we'll save that. And we'll go into drive. And we'll navigate to the north portal. So we know now that it takes about 15 minutes to go from end to end. So effectively, even though it's the same carriages and same type of loco, how it actually looks is different, obviously, because the locos are painted differently. So we'll have a look at the Indian Pacific. Now, the Indian Pacific runs from Sydney to Perth and back, from east coast to west coast. Now, the schedule's just been changed for the trip to take 5 days. But what that also means is that there's more tours, etc., that can be done, rather than trying to get from Sydney. The way it used to work before it became purely a tourist train was that they would try and get the train from Sydney to Perth in the quickest possible time with the carriages and everything that they had. And then focus was changed, so it was more of a tourist train. So you're paying a lot of money to be on the train, obviously, but it's changed a little bit because there's no rush. It's like a cruise train now, rather than, like, it was never really public transport, but it's a first class experience, or basically a first class experience for the whole train. And by adding an extra day, adds to the experience. For instance, now on the way to Perth, it's now possible to do a good Broken Hill tour. On the way back to Sydney, it basically takes a day to get from Broken Hill, like a full 24 hours to get from Broken Hill to the Blue Mountains. Now, I don't think you can actually come back on the train coming from Perth to Sydney. Don't think you can actually end on the Indian Pacific in Sydney. The way it works out, the train is so long, it's 37 carriages during the summer season. And so there's no platform in Sydney that can accommodate 2 locos and 37 Indian Pacific cars. So what they do, if the train can run into Sydney at all, they let everybody out of the train at Mount Victoria, basically at the top of the Blue Mountains, or sometimes Lithgow, sometimes a little bit further west. They take all the luggage through to Sydney, but the customers basically take a whole day touring the Upper Blue Mountains, and then they go on a coach or a train back to Sydney, and that ends their experience. So it's not like the old days where you would just go in from, like when I did the trip, for instance, in 1997, you got on at Sydney. There was a little bit of time in Broken Hill, but not much. There was a couple of hours in Adelaide. And then one of the highlights for me was actually being in at Cook in the outback. Now Cook, the whole idea of Cook was basically in older times a place to house a group of railway people, basically to operate and maintain the railway in the outback. And it became a refueling stop for some of the trains. And I can remember getting out of the train at Cook in the middle of summer, early in the morning, about 9 a.m. local time, and it was already above 30. It was already well above 30 degrees Celsius at that point. And they had a little shop there where you can buy souvenirs and that sort of stuff. It wasn't much of a tour because you're there just to be in the outback. And so I remember going to the shop, buying some souvenirs and saying, oh, it's 30, above 30 degrees already. How hot are you expecting it to be? And from memory, I think the answer was 47 degrees Celsius. Now that, in anybody's language, is hot. 47 degrees Celsius is 116 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's like being in the hottest part of Arizona at the hottest time of the year, hottest part of Arizona. It was going to be 47 degrees. So that's interesting that they got the train going this way here. I do want to change this eventually, because sometimes they use the track on the far left to go around. What we should do is have a look in the cab for a while, now that we're in a modern cab. So this is the cab of a NR class locomotive. Nice little product placement there. Hotbox content. Hotbox content with the mug there, the driver's mug. So we're coming through the station. The NR class locomotive, introduced from memory in 1997, does a variety of roles, mainly freight, the intermodal container trains mainly. Also does do a fair bit of work now with Journey Beyond, who run the Great Southern, Indian Pacific, Garn and the Overland. Yeah, Indian Pacific, Garn, Great Southern, Overland. So quite good. It's quite a great locomotive. It really changed, like this model of loco really changed things from the 1980s of the 81 class. The 82 class and the 90 class were a bit of a step up, heading in this general direction of the NRs. From memory, the NR class loco was the first loco class that was built for what then was National Rail, which then became Pacific National. So we're just waiting at the signal here. So it'll be interesting to see maybe if we can change cameras. Alright, we'll see what we're waiting on. No, the signal's just changed. So I've got the turnout indicator to switch back across. So we're watching the Indian Pacific. We'll watch it until it gets to the North Portal, and we'll see if it exits or not. We'll see what happens. I think, going to do some work just so it's a little bit easier for me. At both of the portals, depending on what happens when what actually happens when a train gets there. But let's sit back and watch the Indian Pacific, the copy and pasted Great Southern train, which I morphed into an Indian Pacific train. And I suppose I was talking about the signs on the side before that the real trains have. Maybe it's better that these trains don't have them, and because I was just able to copy and paste the consist that I'd done for Great Southern. Made another one into the Indian Pacific and just changed the locos. Enjoy. Well, this is the northern portal. This is where the northern end of the map finishes. So we'll just see if the train comes to a stand. And that's basically it for that particular train. So let's have a look. Now, where is Graham? Graham's on the Great Southern. He's basically finished his run. He's at the Southern Portal. So what we can do... should be able to give him instructions. Run around train. Let's see what happens. Navigate to... oh, hang on, we're at South Portal. We need to go to North Portal. So what we might have to do is rotate the consist. Doesn't look like it did it? Change consist heading. Rotate the consist, which didn't look to do anything. Alright, so definitely going to do some work just to make it easier for me to finish the portals, to finish the things off there. Let's have a look at the other trains. We'll go back to driver mode. And we'll have a look at what the other trains are doing. How's our mate doing in the Silver City Comet? Where is he? Hang on, where's that? I don't recognise that. I was off the end of the map. Alright. He's at the other end of the map. So what we'll do is go and have a look at some other trains. See what they're doing. Alright. Donald is in charge of the SSR train. So what we might do while we're here, if we go into surveyor mode, select a train, save to consist asset, SSR coal, the CEY class. Alright. So we'll go under manual control for the moment. We'll just drive around. So we're going around the coal loader at the moment, very slowly. Alright, what I've done, just for curiosity's sake, is that I've given the train instructions to go to the collator, which it's going to by reversing. And I'm going to see if it actually does load this time. So even though the animation's not working, the coal train is being loaded, which is cool. So at the moment, I haven't seen... Actually, that's what I might do now. While we're talking about doing things, I'll be back. Alright, we are back and we made some changes. Now, this is the SSR coal train that I had before. I can't find the equivalent wagons that this train would use because it doesn't purely run on the Hunter Valley Coal Network. It runs on part of it. It actually comes from near the Lithgow area. Dumps at one of the coal loaders in the Newcastle area, then goes back. So I've had to substitute it with the one rail wagons for now. So let's see, what are we waiting on? So if we go to the other end of the scale, we'll show you our new train that I just created. Now this isn't technically correct yet, but it's the closest that I could do for the moment. Now the XRN class of the One Rail Australia coal trains looks like this at the moment, even though it's a separate. This is a different loco class and it's got Horizon on it. So Horizon actually purchased One Rail because One Rail does operate in areas other than the New South Wales Hunter Valley. But basically the coal division in the Hunter Valley was sold on to another company. It's still trading under One Rail. It's very complicated history of what is now One Rail Australia, but its parent company I think is Magnetic something. It's had this organisation's had a few different. It was known as Glencore at one stage, as coal companies were looking after their own transport, and then it went in, and then it basically got into logistics / transport / train companies that are doing it instead. So what does that note say? Do not pass this signal. The area ahead is unsignalled. So it could be so this is the thing. We might drive this in manual control. I will be re-signalling this area so trains can only go in the one direction. If we go back to... Okay, that's Donald. Go back to him. Suspend the orders for the moment. We go into manual control to clear the way. Once I find the relevant coal wagons for this train, I'll take the One Rail wagons off. So what I did while I was paused, I basically copied and pasted this consist, put it onto the main line, changed the locos, saved the new consist, and so the new consist does look like the One Rail locos. The One Rail locos, by the way, have a variety of names on their locos at the moment. Some say One Rail Australia, some say One Rail, Some say Genesee in Wyoming, which was one of the other companies that operated it for a while under that name, as part of that wider group. So while many of the coal wagons now have the one rail icon on the wagons, the locos aren't necessarily all consistent yet. They're all consistently orange. They're all consistently orange. That's one thing. They're all consistently orange, but it's these little details that rail fans notice. And what they've actually started to do, the little icons that are on the side of the wagons, they're actually starting to put those onto the locos. And there's a couple of ones running around that now have One Rail Australia, and the new, it looks like a bigger icon compared to the old one that was on there. So I might just have to fly ahead. I want to check, because we're operating in manual mode, I want to check these. So what we might do for the moment, because we need this train to go and get loaded, but in the meantime, let's see. Alright, we're going to manual mode for this one as well for the moment. We'll take it back a little bit from the signal, just to set things up. That's so much when you get things going in automatic mode or AI mode's awesome. So what we'll do, just for the moment, that changing those points are set. So those points are set. Those points are set. Those points aren't set. That should. Hang on, let's. Those points are set. Those points are set. Those points are set. And those points aren't set. There we go. That signal should be able to clear. Now make a clear. Just want to go into surveyor mode just for a second. Alright, we'll save that. Okay, into driver's mode. We'll unpause it. Alright, that's set. That's set. That's set. And that's set. What's the next signal doing? That's why your signal should be closer together when you're coming up to a junction like this. And we'll make sure these points are set correctly as well, which they're not. Okay. So we're not going to take this road. So what we should be able to do now we'll get back on our SSR train. And this is why I'm looking forward to being able to schedule these a little bit better on Trainz Plus. Now it looks like that route may have cleared for us. Or the rest, maybe the next signal hasn't cleared, but the rest of the route seems to have cleared for us. It's a shame that the power station doesn't have a balloon loop like this is. This makes operations so much easier. Alright. Turn around Okay, that signal's clear. Sweet. So we're looking from the observer's side or the fireman's side or the assistant driver's side, whatever you want to call it. This will be a good screen cap. So eventually the one rail version of these locos will come out, and I'll change these Horizon locos. Now that this is happening, we should be able to now navigate to Donnybrook Power Station and unload. Okay. So what are we waiting for, old mate? Schedule paused. Right, we'll close that schedule then. And we'll rebuild it. Drive. Navigate to Donnybrook Power Station. Coal loader. Notify when we get there. I think that's what that means. And unload. Oh, while we're here, seems to be, if that's going to be a drinking game, that could be a drinking game. Alright. I know that I said that I wasn't going to be doing any wasn't going to do any rebuilding. What we might do is not that. Alright. Drive, pause. Okay, we've got a new signal there now. Not sure why old mate's waiting. In the meantime, Let's see what Amy's doing. And where's Amy? All right, what should Amy be doing? Navigate to coal loader, unloader I should say, the power station. And unload. Alright, we seem to have a bit of a bottleneck here. There's do want to re-signal this section eventually. Let's see, alright. I might just take over manual control for a moment. Alright, you know what? I said that I wasn't going to. So, in theory, once I finish this, in theory, and sometimes this is where you find where your trouble spots are. Okay, so we now have a proceed indication on that signal. How's these points? Alright, let's have a look. Alright, what can we say about this signal? Line ahead is occupied. Okay, this is interesting. I'm not sure why. Line ahead is occupied. But if I... Maybe because that SSR, that AK cars is too close. Again, this is how you find things out. So, alright, so if we have, well, obviously that signal is going to be at stop and is never going to change. Alright, so by going back here, let's go to Amy. Alright, Amy is under manual control, so if we go back, back a bit, because this section should no longer be... Alright, let's have a look at, because that signal is definitely at stop. Those points I just changed. Now I'd expect the signal to be red in that case. So that signal has changed. Or those points have changed. That in theory should now be clear. That signal is showing a proceed indication. And I can definitely fix this with a re-signalling, and I want to. Alright, we'll replace it with a different signal. We'll check the details of it. Oops, didn't need to do that. I'll set that for the main. Sometimes it could be the fault too that these signals aren't set up. line ahead is... Oh, that's why it's still showing the Hunter car that derailed from yesterday. It is still showing that it's there. So if we focus on that... And I think too, because I deleted that particular... because I deleted that particular one as well. But it derailed. But it still should have cleared. Is that train? Is that train, that Hunter train, still on my list, by the way? Endeavour. Just get rid of the Endeavours just to be on the safe side. So with our troubleshooting over, we'll save that. Now we may need to just give Amy permission to pass this signal at stop because of the so we're just going to role play that we've done that. Just because a signal stopped and let's say it's failed for whatever reason, doesn't mean that you just sit there forever. Oh, and it's saying we derailed too. So I'm definitely going to have to work on this section. Anywho, I have been Simulator Dirk. You have been wonderful. Not the way that I wanted to end up the episode. Thanks for watching, and ta-ta and farewell.